Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Iculet Arikosi, but you can call me Iculet as my friends call me. For those who know me, you know I love reading. And one of the lessons that I know for sure and that I've learned in my 23 years of life is that reading is a priceless investment. Very priceless. And I believe it's the cheapest investment, it's the most affordable investment because we are at an age when you can literally find any book anywhere. You can buy a physical copy, you can find a free audiobook on YouTube, you can find a PDF on the internet. So, reading is a priceless investment and is one of the most affordable investments that can inadvertently influence and improve other parts of your life. I recently finished a book called The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. For some reason, I have been reading a lot of military swordsmanship, warfare kind of books. And one would wonder, what can you possibly get from a military or warfare kind of book? I am going to tell you. Yes, this book specifically is about swordsmanship. He was and still is a historically acclaimed swordsman. And he was greatly celebrated in his time. And even now, he is still remembered for how well he perfected the art of swordsmanship. And there are a lot of disciplines and principles that apply in all aspects of life. In fact, the more I read, the more I find repetitive principles in business, in science, in war, in all these aspects of life, in academia, in leadership, the principles are the same. That's why you'll find that there are so many repeated quotes. And even when someone has not necessarily copied and pasted, but there are certain similarities in things that push us to be great, to be better, to achieve in our different spheres of life. And they apply in the military, in swordsmanship, in business, in academics, in leadership, in family, in friendship. They do apply. Before we even go to the book itself, the way he lived his life is actually very inspirational. He was so good that by the time he reached 30, he relegated his actual sword, the metallic sword, and began using a wooden sword. In one of the things that he teaches, he speaks about you being as strong as your weakest link. So yes, we have things that we are strong at, that we are good at, but usually we are actually slowed down or affected largely by our weakest link, right? It makes me ponder about the way wolves move in a pack. If you've seen how they organize themselves, the wolf at the lead and at the back are the strongest, and they move at the pace of the slowest in the pack. So the elderly, maybe the pregnant wolves, even while they are young, healthy, strong wolves in that pack, they are going to move at the pace of the slowest. You get what I'm saying? So it's really good to appreciate and celebrate our strong points, but we should not take for granted our weakest points. And I saw this as him, first of all, acknowledging that having a certain kind of sword gives you an upper hand, but you won't always have that kind of sword. So he began using a wooden sword, and he was still successful in all of his duels by the time he died. Now, another thing that before I even get to the top takeaways of this book is that he actually he was very humble in the way he carried himself, and he remained on a quest of learning, of studying, and of accumulating knowledge. And that is why I proudly call myself a lifelong student. I will never stop learning, and I will never stop trying to keep seeking and looking for more knowledge. Of course, there is you amassing knowledge, but there's equally application of that knowledge. So this is someone who, even when he was at the height of his swordsmanship, he remained humble. And at 30 years old, he was considered the best. But he still felt that there was more he did not know and there was more he could learn, even while there was no one around him who would stand against him, right? And this is what he wrote in the book. He wrote, he said, when I reached 30, I looked back on my past. The previous victories were not due to my having mastered strategy. Perhaps it was natural ability or the order of heaven, or that others called strategy was inferior. After that, I studied morning and evening, searching for the principle, and came to realize the way of strategy when I was 50. Many of us at 23, at 25, we think we know it all. We think we have acquired that wisdom and intellect. We cannot be told. We know. Don't tell me I know, please, and we lose that humility that usually is, it's like, how in a chemical reaction, that the different properties may be present for the reaction to take place, but there is a catalyst that actually makes the reaction happen. And that catalyst is humility in the instance of knowledge. Because when you are constantly humble enough to know that you don't know, you're going to listen when someone is speaking. You're going to pay attention even when someone who you think is less than you is talking, and you're going to pick the wisdom in what they are saying. But when you have that pride in knowing, usually that's the beginning of our downfall. And by downfall in Miyamoto's case could have been losing in a duel, and at that time duels were to the death. Not this time of retreating. They were to the death, unless your opponent just chooses to forgive you, but usually they would not. So it's a book about swordsmanship, about warfare, and we are all going through some kind of warfare. It may not be a duel, a physical fight, but we are struggling with different things: bad habits, vices, self-esteem, fear. We are struggling with all these different things, and the same principles that are applied in warfare, in a military battle, in swordsmanship, are the same concepts that you can apply in those different battles that you are facing. So I recommend this book to anyone who is going through a certain struggle and they would like to understand the ways that they can anchor themselves in, that they can position themselves to deal and face head on these issues, not retreat, not hide and cower in a corner and hope that the issue passes, not to put your head under the sand like an ostrich, yet the rest of your body is literally exposed for impact, So this book is for you. And yes, while reading this book, it wasn't an easy read because it was a bit cryptic, and Miyamoto, I honestly, I used to watch a lot of anime, the likes of Bleach, Samurai X. So at times I even would like to add a title to his name. So the point is that even while his way of writing was cryptic, and he kept on saying that go do more research on this, he would say something and send you to go and do more research on it, like go and find your own way. For many, it may be a hard read, but it's very impactful and very transformational. So I'm going to share with you my top takeaways from the book, and this in no way fully summarizes what is in the book. It's so much. So I'm just going to give you a few that hopefully can provoke you to go and find the book and read it yourself. Because I'm giving you what I have taken out of the book, what I have understood from the book, but possibly you may have your own interpretation, which you should allow yourself experience. So these are my top takeaways from the book. The first one is, when you sacrifice your life, you must make the fullest use of your weaponry. It is false not to do so and to die with a weapon yet undrawn. It just takes me back to the different times that you have been dealing with something, you have taken the resolve to face it head on, and you don't do your best. First of all, before we even go to Even just attempting to do it is already an achievement of its own, because very many of us cower. But then you take that step, you take that bold step and attempt to do something, and then you do not reveal all the different arsenal that you have, the different attributes about yourself that could possibly give you an upper hand or an advantage in these different things. Very many of us are afraid to expose our talents. We are afraid to let the world see what we can offer, what we can do. We would rather be unseen. We would rather be invisible than be visible and risk being shunned and risk being ridiculed and risk losing publicly. That's the biggest thing. You'd rather lose in your cocoon where nobody knows than the whole world being privy to your loss or your failure. And usually that definitely limits our ability to succeed, or to live fulfilled lives, because these talents that we have, these strengths that we have, these dreams and visions that come into our mind are meant to be implemented, and you need to utilize every single arsenal that you have within yourself and do it. He says that it is false not to do so and to die with a weapon yet undrawn. For those who have watched very many of these animations or even these Japanese movies, an honorable death. Like, how those spies, even when they were caught, there's a way they respected dying in honor. Even when the guy knows that he's going to lose, he will draw his weapon and fight you and you kill him, than pleading for his life and then you still kill him. I know. But if you appreciate that dedication to dying in the best possible, because the issue isn't winning the fight. It would be nice, but the issue is, have I done my best? Did I lose after doing my best? That is the issue. I remember in my primary, in P7, I aspired for prefectship, head girl. I had this kind of balloon in my chest to aspire and go for head girl. I had different things limiting me. I had a very strong stammer by then. I had a lot of stage fright by then. But I felt like, I have to stand. I have to go for it. I was so scared. But I did it. I remember my very good friend, Liz and Gail, when they were counting my votes. I stood, yes, but she also stood with me, honestly. I remember we were giving the assembly speech. There was a girl in P5. She was coming for deputy head girl. The girl could speak. She was confident. She was very good. And I was coming after her. And I had a stammer. I had not prepared a speech at that time. That's why knowledge comes in. When you're aware of your weaknesses, there are ways to overcome it. Probably had I prepared a speech, had I written action points down, had I rehearsed, maybe even while I still had that strong stammer, maybe it would have been less embarrassing. I didn't prepare a speech. She probably prepared because she was really eloquent and really precise. I came and I was stammering. Yes, I was speaking. I was confident because I stood irregardless, but I wasn't prepared, which further amplified and exposed my existing weaknesses. But I stood. And that is one thing I will always, I'll always admire, that, 11, 10-year-old girl, I stood, even knowing that I had different weaknesses. And my friend, I remember when they were counting, but you have friends, so they count the votes and they give to your friend. And they would call everybody else's name and my name would come like once in a while. I think it was my friends and maybe my brothers and their friends who voted for me. But I stood, and I always respect myself for that. And possibly that standing maybe gave me, I think it did give me more resilience and more confidence to stand in the future, because I stood, I lost. Did I die? No, I didn't. Yes, you feel like everybody is looking at you, you feel embarrassed, but over time you just kind of develop a certain resilience. And some of these things are only developed when you try and when you attempt. And the thing that probably I could regret is not giving it my all, right? In terms of maybe preparing a speech. But that was my first time standing anyway. So I can give myself grace. And if you're doing something and you know how well it can be done, do it as well as you can. Invest all that you can and see what happens. Another top takeaway from the book goes like this. Study strategy over the years and achieve the spirit of the warrior. Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Tomorrow is your victory over lesser men. This just teaches me that you are not in competition with anyone. It's so easy in this age where social media, you're literally in someone's bedroom. You are getting updates in real time over different people's lives in America, in Kenya, in Malawi, in Gulu. You know exactly what they are doing, but you're not the same. You come from different families. You have different backgrounds. You are supported differently. You have different advantages by virtue of where you come from. Some people have more advantages because of their family's sacrifice, because of their family's already existing sort of advantage, because of different things, So you are not in competition with anybody in this world. It's kind of hard to accept because you are very aware about different people's whereabouts and their dealings, but it's not them. You are either your biggest limitation, your biggest advocate, your biggest strength. You are the instrument that can literally bring to reality anything that you aspire to do. He's saying today, you need to have victory over yourself of yesterday. You know how you have been in the past. You know the issues you have been facing in the past. Before you seek to compete with someone, and you shouldn't, deal with your own inherently visible weaknesses. Have victory over them. And then possibly tomorrow, you will have victory over others. Actually, by how he says it, it just means that having victory over lesser men will just be inevitable. In fact, you don't even have to actively compete against them. The more you overcome the battles within yourself, having victory over lesser men is just a result. It's a consequence of that. It's not that you are actively seeking it. No, do this and the rest will follow. I know someone out there needs to hear this. You're competing with someone on Twitter. You're competing with someone on Facebook. I don't know. It's a very depressing battle. Just overcome your own battles within yourself and the rest will follow. The next one is there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever enable you to get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. I recently spoke about seeking external validation to rationalize why we think and believe what we believe, or why we are determined to pursue certain things. So you seek a certain external sign, like you want a sign in the world to make you do something that you have a lot of resolve to do. And this is very similar, everything. It's really, it may not be easy to embrace, especially in some of the issues that we face in different countries, some of the external barriers that affect you and cripple your efforts. But there is something about the strength and resolve and resilience and perseverance within us that can inadvertently extinguish all these different external barriers. So don't seek for hope, for validation, for encouragement from the outside. Start from within. Because we all can't be lucky to have a good support system. We are all not lucky to have maybe a wealthy family. We are all not lucky to have encouraging friends, motivating friends, and yet we have dreams, we have aspirations, we have visions. So it starts from inside. Seek what's within, and then the rest will follow. The rest will follow, trust me. Then another huge top takeaway from that book is it will seem difficult at first, but everything is difficult at first. Bows are difficult to draw, halberds are difficult to wield. As you become accustomed to the bow, so your pull will become stronger. When you become used to wielding the long sword, you will gain the power of the way and wield the sword well. Very many of us end things at the beginning because of how hard it is, because the likelihood of it getting better may seem impossible, may not be visible, but most things are hard at the beginning. However, take it from me, the fulfillment and satisfaction of the journey, even before you reach the finish line, daily as you see yourself pushing through, showing up, persevering, literally beating the odds daily. I don't know what's more fulfilling than that. As you see yourself speaking to people when you know that you used to have a thick, strong stammer, when you know that there was a time when your tongue would almost roll in your mouth and you could not speak. Honestly, for me, each and every day, that in itself fulfills me and satisfies me. And very many of us have had either may have even gone through having this same experience or something else. So when you realize that it could be difficult at first, but with effort, it's going to get better. And even before it gets better, even just appreciating the dedication, the strength to move forward despite all those different things, that in itself is something to be proud of. And I'm proud of myself each and every day, not for individual achievements, no, but for that dedication and strength to go forward even when it was difficult. And the more you normalize that culture of going forward even when it is difficult, the easier it gets, So the things being difficult do not necessarily limit you, Your resolve and perseverance will rise up to meet that difficulty. So this book is about military and swordsmanship, but trust me, even just reading the words of this swordsman who had over 65 duels and won all of them. His first duel was at the age of 13 years and it was to the death and he won it. I bet by that time he didn't have as much skill. It was just like haphazard, but it was maybe determination or brute strength or just not yielding. There's a part where he speaks about when you're in a fight, don't yield until the enemy is down. Even when you see the enemy, he's now falling, he's now you're almost beating him, then you relax. That's the moment. That's the moment that it comes to bite you. Reminds me of Will Smith. Probably he relaxed. So when Chris Rock says something and it finds him in that state, he had put his guard down. So in this book, he speaks of not putting your guard down at any moment. Another thing that I learned is that you should not have a favorite weapon. To become over familiar with one weapon is as much a fault as not knowing it sufficiently well. So some of us are aware of certain strengths that we have, and we just focus on those. We are riding that strength till it runs its course. We are really utilizing it, and we completely forget that there are other sort of assets that we have. They may not be as strong as the one that you're good at, but but they equally have a value to play. So do not only focus on what you're good at, on what you can excel at. Sometimes even these different things that you may be struggling with are still useful. They are still important for you to achieve different things. So try to be all round. Try to also dedicate some time to improving the different things that you're weak at. For example, let's say let's say you are a good academician. You are, when it comes to the books, you can really get the books, you can read, you can ace your exams, but you aren't involved in maybe voluntary work, you aren't getting experience from different people, you don't know how to socialize, how to network. So you being successful in terms of academics without having certain skills, they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be top notch or top tier like person X who you've seen, but you can navigate that kind of space. You may struggle, but you can navigate it. That's combined with this strength that you're really good at could be the ace up your sleeve. So don't focus on your favorite weapon. You get what I'm saying? When such a book says weapon, in your mind, just change it to skill, change it to asset, change it to character, attribute, value. When they say war or battle, change it to weakness, change it to struggle, change it to limitation. You get? So don't read things at face value. Even a book that's about war and swordsmanship has a lot to teach you, right? The next top takeaway from this book is know the smallest things and the biggest things, the shallowest things and the deepest things. Honestly, you see how reading different books in different genres comes to play, because you're going to know a bit of everything. You're going to know a bit about swordsmanship, a bit about productivity, a bit about business, a bit about life, a bit about purpose. Then you also have things that you know a lot about. These things come to not only improve your wisdom and knowledge, but even your interaction with different people. When you're having a conversation with someone, it won't only be one-sided. You can actually move across different topics, learn from them. Even when you're not knowledgeable, you can know the right questions to ask. You can know the right responses to make when you have a bit of knowledge in different things. So we need to explore different avenues, different disciplines of knowledge if we would like to be holistic. We're living in an age where to solve the different complex problems in society, we need to actually be in multidisciplinary teams. And the biggest reason why very many multidisciplinary teams fail is because different experts in disciplines are not aware about the other disciplines' way of doing things, even just their ethical values or just the things the things they hold dear. So you may not be an expert in a field, but appreciate the efforts and complexity that a discipline brings to the team, and that a discipline has to offer in anything. You'll at least have you'll have a welcoming environment in navigating these different things. So I've worked in different teams where people from who are doing different courses or different programs are just like they're stuck up. Let me just say it like that. Like they're stuck in their ways, and they are so myopic in the value of their discipline that they don't even see the value that other disciplines have to bring. And that's because they only know that discipline. They have just allowed themselves to just stick to the boundaries and confines of their discipline, and they haven't created pores through which they can receive knowledge and equally give knowledge in an amicable and positive way. And I believe that this is something that we can all use in the different fields that we are working, because in one way or another, you're going to interface with different disciplines. Another one is, in contests of strategy, it is bad to be led about by the enemy. You must always be able to lead the enemy. As someone who has been through different campaigns, especially for political leadership, it's so easy for you to be focused on what your opponent is doing. Oh, what are they doing? What trick are they bringing? Are they trying to use propaganda against me? Are they spreading rumors about us? So the whole team is just focusing on what the other team is doing. So you're not showing the electorate or the people what you have to offer. You're only responding to propaganda. You're responding to chemicals. They call them chemicals. I found that out when I went to an election. You spend a lot of time responding to chemicals. I remember when I was during the journey towards becoming the guild president of MAST, there were at the time I was the only female in a race of about 5 gentlemen, some of whom dropped out along the way. But there were so many chemicals that were spread about me. Oh, she's so and so's daughter. She got money from this person. So many things that are spread about you. And while they can sting, because most of the time they are not true. They are built to break you down, and they are built to slow your pace and make you focus on these things. So even while those things were happening, I always had to, and as a team, we really unanimously agreed that yes, while it's good to be aware of what's going on, we still need to have a bigger focus on what we are doing, on setting the pace in different things, on being leaders. And this comes in different ways. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the one to put posters first, the one to you can be creative in your way, right? I remember I used animations. I used different unique ways to try and appeal to the electorate. And that paid off, So don't focus on the enemy, And the enemy is, like I said, is not, it may not really be a person. It may be a company. It may be it may be a weakness, Don't focus on that thing. Focus on being the lead, on setting the pace, and on being the trendsetter in all that you do. The final one, because like I said, there are so many lessons in this book, so many lessons that I cannot really explore in entirety, but these are some of the key takeaways that I feel can be helpful to you. So if you don't really get a chance to read the book with some of these things applied in your life, it will make a difference. So the final one is, if you attempt a technique that you have previously tried unsuccessfully and failed yet again, then you must change your attacking method. Very many of us are doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. My dear, it's not going to happen unless you do something differently. Different results will come from different actions, will come from different values, different habits, different practices. So you may have this thing that you want, but you have continuously failed to get it. You've failed to arrive at this ideal that you would like to do, but you're doing the same thing. You aren't putting systems around you to support you. You aren't changing the group within which you're navigating. You aren't exploring different avenues of achieving what you want to achieve. You aren't amassing new knowledge. You're still working with the same set of skills to achieve different results. So I think very many of us need to first take a pause, evaluate who we are, very truthful, because many a time when someone asks you to assess yourself, you tend to overestimate what you have. You rather underestimate than overestimate, I think there's this thing in business where they say you rather under-promise a client and then over-deliver than over-promising and delivering. Very many of us, when you're buying something, like if you're to buy something from Chiku or Jumia, they'll tell you it's coming in 4 months. Usually it comes earlier, by the way, but they'll tell you within 3 to 4 months. So, of course, you hesitate, then anyway, you pay for it. But you've paid for it knowing that 4 months. When it comes in 1 month, you will be excited. You will feel like, these guys are really good. Even when they have still delayed compared to their competitors. But they underpromised and then they over delivered. You're going to appreciate them, and you're going to even overvalue them compared to their competitors in that field. So you need to, first of all, value yourself very accurately, and then try to see your weaknesses, see your strengths, see your weaknesses. And weaknesses aren't a bad thing. They aren't something for you to hide or for you to be ashamed of. It's just an avenue for you to get better. It's just a way through which you can be more intentional and focused to improve yourself. So if you want to achieve something differently when you've had a history of failing at it, then implement different results. So, like I say, this book is largely about swordsmanship, but the principles that are applied in scientific research, in military, in business, the same resolve and concepts that Albert Einstein implemented are the same that Miyamoto Musashi implemented. So you can use those same historically verified principles right from these people's minds and thoughts from their own writing, and modify them to suit your context and possibly achieve as they did, or even better, because maybe they did not have access to this knowledge, but you do. So what's stopping you? Nothing. Otherwise, thanks for joining me. See you next time.